what is good? Hey! And gets shut out. And then gets shut out. What's happening, Tiki? How are you today?
So, BT, I'm not the Yankee fan that you are. By the way, let's real quickly, thank you, Yankees and Judges Chambers, for taking care of us last night. We had an unbelievable time. But
we talked about that part. You ignored that.
That is not – no, but I just think I need to say this because of what I'm about to say.
Oh.
So – I became a Yankees fan later in life. I did not grow up a Yankee fan like you did. So I don't have this institutional or emotional historical knowledage of the history of the team.
You're not psychotic is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Understood.
Like all those fans that were sitting around us last night. It was awesome. And that's a totally different story.
And Met fans are the same way. We'll get to you guys.
I came into my Yankee fandom in a different way.
Yep.
It was because I started to hang out with some of these guys. I met and got really close with CC Sabathia. Really, my wife got close with Amber. And around 2013, 2014, he was still playing. And so I'm watching him. Right? I became a fan because I'm watching my buddy go out and do what he does. And he was good. And then he got hurt and then he got healthy and he learned how to pitch. And it was so my fandom was through a specific portal. It wasn't necessarily because I grew up a Yankee fan. And but being in that fandom the way that I was, I kept hearing the same things. Like, this team is going to win a World Series. This team is geared up to win a World Series. This team should win a World Series this year. And just going back and looking at it, in 2015, they lost in the wild card round. They didn't make the postseason the next year in 2016 and 2017. We all know that was the Houston Astros cheating year, but they lost in the CS. But again, that was a good team. I'm listening to all this World Series chatter like, maybe they're right. Maybe they can get there. Then the next year, they lose in the DS 3-1 in that series. They lose in the championship series again to the Houston Astros. They lose in the DS the following year. They lose the wild card last year with that whole Garrett Cole blow up against the Boston Red Sox. Yet every year that I've been a Yankee fan, in the sense of being a Yankee fan, all I've heard is, this is a World Series team. It's World Series or bust for this Yankees team. This team has all the makings to be a World Series team. Look at what Girardi did back in the day. Look at what Boone has done. 103 games, 100 and something games. Every year, I get this expectation that the Yankees are a World Series team, and if they don't, they are underachieving. Well, I got news for you. I got news for you, Yankees fans. I got news for you, Yankees. This team is not a World Series team. They are too old. They are not innovative in how they design their squad, how they bring up and nurture prospects.
Although that might be changing with the kids coming up, but I got you. Keep going.
They're not current in how they play baseball. They're current to baseball a decade ago, 2 decades ago, and it's like, hit as many home runs as you can. They're not reliable. And they're not fun when they get this way. And so when I think about what's going to happen now and in the future, if Aaron Judge decides to bounce, if some of these other prospects who they've touted and put so much pressure on don't work out, how can Yankee fans sit here and scream, we're a World Series team? You can't. You got to change your destination point, Yankees fans. They're a playoff team. I want to hear that from now on. My Yankees are a solid playoff team, because that's about all you're getting, and it's all you've gotten for the last decade or so, BT. That was not my immediate takeaway from last night, but when I coalesced it all together from my, let's say, decade and a half of fandom as opposed to your 40 years, this team is not a World Series team every single year. So stop saying it, Yankee fans. You can't disagree. I know you would.
I would love to refute that, but I'm not going to waste anybody's time even attempting to refute that. It's funny because I went from never expecting to win a World Series to always expecting to win a World Series. Although, that expiration point for me kicked in a couple of years ago. There's a limit on that, and I do think that I do think the number's waning. I don't think there's many Yankee fans. I don't hear them. I don't interact with them. The callers don't really. You get the occasional, it's a long season. They'll be fine. They'll recalibrate. But for the most part, I think most Yankee fans know This ain't good. And right now, and we'll see with the kids, again, it's not confirmed by the Yankees, but Florial, Cabrera, they're on the way up. There's some injuries and maybe an infusion of youth. Maybe this kind of changes things. And I've referenced 2005 when the Yankees brought up Robinson Cano and Shin-Ming Wang, who won back-to-back 19, won 19 games in a row. 2 years in a row, was a really good Yankee. Maybe would have gone down as a potentially great Yankee if he didn't get that stupid Linz Frank injury, running the bases at Houston, as a quick aside. But you got to remember, number one, Cano, despite steroids aside, was a phenomenal hitter. We don't know what these kids are bringing to the table. No. And the other thing, here's one thing I do hear a lot, all right? Those Yankee fans who believe that this is just a little bout of this little malaise that they're about to, I can't even speak today. This little malaise that they're about to burst out of, right? You hear this a lot. Well, the 2000 Yankees, they were able to recover. Let me just, I know this is 20 plus years ago, but if you're going to cite history, you've at least got to be accurate. And here's the difference. So on September 13th now that team went on to beat, who did they beat? The Metsies in the World Series. No, the 2000 Yankees beat them. That was the Subway Series, right? But that team had also gone back-to-back. They were back-to-back defending champions. So when they get to the middle of, not to mention the one in 96 as well, and the loss to the Indians in 97, Mo giving up the bomb to Alomar, very good Yankee team. Probably should have won 4 in a row. But the middle of September that year, they're 84-59. Cruising. 25 games over 500. You know what they did the rest of the year?
No, tell me.
3-15.
Wow, that sounds like on the pace they're on right now.
I hear you. And I'm going to tell you why it's very different, though, okay? This is not me trying to convince Yankee fans that because it happened in 2000. No, that's not where I'm going. I'm going the exact opposite. And by the way, their final 7 games that year, they mustered up a total of 15 runs, which is exactly what plagues this team. They're not hitting. The difference is that team, all right, aside from the championship DNA that I referenced with the back-to-back chips, Derek was 26, Posada was in his late 20s, Tino was in his early 30s, Bernie was still in his prime at 31, Mo was 30, Pettit was 28, and you had dogs everywhere. Clemens, El Duque, guys that you, not to mention Torrey, guys that you knew. Now, I didn't know for sure that they were going to rebound and win the World Series. I'm not trying to say that 22 years later. When I found out it was going to be the Mets, I knew we were going to win. But I got to give a loud season. But going into the playoffs, I was worried. But there was at least the hope and not a delusional possibility that they would recover, but it was hope rooted in previous performance. That does not apply to this team.
Because this team doesn't
have done a damn thing together.
Doesn't have that previous performance.
They've done nothing together.
And look, last night it's typical of what's been going on. And being at the game, you felt the energy, the expectation. What David Cohn was talking about a night ago or 2 nights ago from today, where he said, this team wants to cheer.
The fans.
Yeah, but
the fans came here wanting to cheer.
Yeah, but they're ready to boo,
they're ready to boo, and it's funny because and we'll tell you more about the chamber later for sure. And I echo Tiki's sentiments. Yankees treated us very well. Really, really deeply appreciative. Awesome experience. But, I was sitting with my son. I'm sitting with some listeners. Tiki sitting next to a listener. At one point, he turns to me because I'm one row behind Tiki in the chamber, and he says, They want to boo almost.
You're right. You can feel it.
You can feel it.
That's right.
There was an angst, a heaviness, a disgust,
and it was
a disconnect.
And it was unfortunate because Nestor actually had a good outing except for one pitch.
Yep.
He left one out there for Rosarina and he smashed it. Other than that, he was great. But even with just 3 runs, you expect this Yankees team, after what they started the season doing, to at least threaten.
I didn't expect it last night. I got to be honest with you.
If it wasn't for Benintendi, who then get knocked around by Florio, so he comes in, they get a run. There was no offense.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost knew when Judge struck out looking his first time that the team was going to be in trouble because they become so dependent on Aaron Judge. It's frustrating. It is beyond maddening, and you hope, I think, in some desperate way, that these young kids that they're bringing up, not young, but you know what I mean, these kids
they're bringing up. They're young.
Yeah, but they're not like 20. You know what I mean? Florio's 24.
Florio's 24. Cabrera's a little bit younger, 22,
23.
By the way, why isn't Peraza up? Do you know what Peraza did last night?
No, I didn't see.
Went 3 for 5, banged his 17th home run, stole his 29th base. Now, Florial, I hope they actually give the kid a chance.
Yeah.
But I'm not really convicted. I don't view him. To me, he's more of a Band-Aid with all due respect to the young man. Not that he can't provide a little surge of energy. Hopefully that happens. Cabrera is 145 pounds. Now, I think he's got he's got a little pop. But to me, Peraza was the guy that I wanted to see.
Yeah.
That's why I've been screaming for.
But
at least we're getting something.
But he's also the same type of hitter that they have here. Now, because Torres is trying to swing for the fence every time again.
We are back to that for sure.
So
no question.
We're back to,
and we've been back to that. He's been in a horrendous funk.
One swing and let's change the game.
Yeah,
that's not happening. It's not how you do it.
Can I ask you a question?
When you're in a slump, you don't swing harder when you're in a slump.
We were talking about this last night, and I want you to express this. Then we're going to get to these calls. 877-337-6666. We'll get to the Mets. This is where you're lucky. Who do you got going the next two? You got Scherzer, DeGrom. Don't worry, we're getting to that. But I asked Tiki last night. We were talking about this. Like, what a pro. I don't mean somebody that is not on the trajectory of greatness. And if you're a pro athlete, you have gifts that are different than all of us, all right? But how does a pro athlete, with the coaching, the tools, and the ability to get to that stage to begin with, not on some level compartmentalize and understand and change? I don't mean that you're suddenly going to hit home runs, but your approach.
Yeah.
How do you not realize if you're Gleyber Torres that you've got to change your swing?
Because he's letting the moment be larger than the bigger picture, right? That moment where I'm the hero. I'm going to fix this, as opposed to let me just get on base and let's create something together, as opposed to I'm doing it myself. So much of that team effort last night, or lack of a team effort last night, except for Benintendi and Andujar, the lack of a team, it felt so individual. It was weird. Like watching Judge come up, everybody's now standing up like, all right, Judge is going to do this now. Right? It felt like that the entire night. Like it was just
we're no dummies. If he doesn't, we don't score.
It was going to be an individual as opposed to the team that found their way out of a Nestor mistake.
So, like when you put a couple on the turf, I would imagine, of course, you hold it high. You're invested emotionally in the mechanical aspect of holding the ball. But there's got to be some part of you who's saying, man, I want to rip off an 80 yards, just take it to the house, shut everybody up. And it makes it worse.
Yes, you have to fight that instinct.
Okay.
You have to fight the instinct and just get back to not thinking. Because when you're trying to so hard, you're thinking about it. But when you get back to just executing and not thinking, all right, I got to take my sidestep, my rotating of my off leg, get downhill, see the blocking. All right, trust that it's going to open here and just hit and stop, dancing and trying to make holes, creating things out of nothing. Baseball's the same way. Don't think. Just go back to what you already have known and trained yourself to be ready for. And the Yankees aren't doing that right now. And they're not hitting. And it doesn't matter how good or bad their pitching staff is because they're not scoring runs. 3 runs is a quality start for 7 innings.
No question. If you just tuned in, and I don't disagree, Tiki's take out of the chute here is Yankee fans, and I think the numbers are certainly dwindling, but just the way we perceive this franchise, if you're still walking around saying World Series are bust, you got to modify what you think. Because if you don't, then you're not really watching the product. And I can't disagree. This team doesn't look like they're even – this team looks like a first-round exit. This looks like the team that lost to the Angels in the early 2000s or the Tigers when A-Rod was bumped down the lineup with Torrey. Actually, it might be worse. 877-337-6666 inside of our studio, the Town Fair Tire Studio. Our friends there remind you that you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Again, we'll tell you some stories from the chamber. We had a great time, but right now, you guys want to let loose a little bit, I would imagine. Mets will get to you later, I promise. Anthony on Long Island. What's up, Anthony? How you doing today?
What's going on, guys?
Good,
first
Anthony.
time calling. Lifelong Giants fan, Yankees fan, Tiki is man.
Appreciate you.
Just want to air out what you guys already have been airing out about these Yankees. Even what Tiki just said about, world that they're not a World Series or bust, and you guys got to wake up if you still think that. I don't even think that you should even call them a playoff team. Now they're going to make the playoffs, obviously, but as a Yankee fan, my expectation if the playoffs started right now is that they would get swept in the first round.
Wait. Now, Anthony, I'm not going to necessarily sweep. I wouldn't say sweep, but independent of opponent, just a broad brush, no matter who they play, Yanks are going home. Twins, sending them home.
I think so. I don't think they beat.
Yeah, I don't agree with
the
that.
Twins in a series right
I don't agree with that. Respectfully, I disagree.
And this is what I think. Why? It's not even more of the runs that they can't score or whatever. That's something that, I guess could change on any day. But it just seems that they're finding ways to lose. It's like when a team is full of losers, they'll find a way to lose. They could be up in the top of the ninth by 4 runs, and you just have that feeling in the dugout as a player, like usually
something's going to go wrong.
Right.
Something's going to go wrong. Like Clay Holmes, who was elite for the first half of the season, all of a sudden can't find the strike zone,
and now hurt,
and now he's hurt. Right, no matter what's happening, it just never seems to work out for you. Appreciate your call, Anthony.
Yeah, no, it's hard not to feel that way. And if you're just one of these, 2, 3, 4 percentile where everything's rosy, they'll find a way. I've been a Yankee fan since the '60s. We're great. That's fine.
But the same thing.
But I'm envious of that mindset because I do not share that.
Last
I
night,
don't think realistic fans
as we're watching this game, and we've had this conversation on air multiple times. It was where's the answer? Like, what's the solution? How do you move this back to at least closer to what it was a month ago? Or not even a month, maybe 2 months ago at this point.
At this point, it's 36, 37 games.
That's
man.
right. So 2 months ago, when they were the best team in baseball, how do you get that back? There's a swagger, like there's a mojo, there's a confidence. It's all of these things that you talk about when you're talking about successful people or athletes that they used to have. Mm-hmm. How does it disappear?
Well, okay, go ahead.
And we've heard this so many times about the Jordan Montgomery trade, and I don't want to put it on one guy leaving the locker room, but when a guy who is a career Yankee, right, and is a quality lefty arm who obviously had great relationships with everybody in that locker room, because when he got traded, everyone was shocked, right? I think when you disrupt something without knowing what the outcome is going to be, you put yourself in a situation where you can't control the emotions of the team, right? And I think they miscalculated that. Now,
but they weren't playing well. It's not like they were. I'm not necessarily disagreeing.
But something
extended it.
Something changed.
But
right?
They weren't playing well before it.
Yeah,
they really weren't.
Yeah, I hear you, but it didn't feel dire.
Well, because they were still
dire.
They went
or two. 21 innings without a run.
No, I hear you. Wait, so you're telling me, and I'm not even going to really say no, but I guess I'm more asking, although I don't really believe this, but I'll remain open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
Are you telling me that on some direct or even indirect level, the Yankees' bats are now impotent because emotionally something changed when Montgomery was dealt?
I don't know.
I mean, how do you make that correlation?
I can't.
How does that impact Josh Donaldson?
Because Josh Donaldson's just been having
garbage.
That's
a good example.
He's the bad example.
So that's true.
But when you heard all of these guys talk about, I don't know, they're just like the
energy leaves the room. I mean, maybe there's something to that.
There was something depressive.
Maybe.
And I'm not saying depressing. There was something depressive about that trade. And you heard it from the guys talking about when they talked about it.
Yep.
Now, I don't know his relationship. I'm not in that clubhouse. I have no idea. But something changed, and it was significant, and it was everywhere. It wasn't just, Gleyber Torres now is in a funk. Oh, yeah, IKF is now in a funk. Like, everybody was in a funk all of a sudden.
Yeah.
The dynamic has shifted.
But if they're that fragile, they were going nowhere anyway. It's not like he's your ace, who went down with Tommy John.
Which was exactly my point to start this show. This team is not crafted or equipped to be, we're a World Series team, no matter how good you look on paper.
877-337-6666.